And for the first time, we are now hearing from people who say that their neighborhood turned into a war zone. First, the gunfire between the police and this domestic violence suspect, and then followed by the sound that they will never forget, a DPS helicopter crashing near the railroad tracks. 12 News journalist Kyle Semchuk spent some time in the area today and spoke with people who saw and heard all of this unfold.
Well, yeah, as you can see, police still have this road blocked off, so we have not been able to get close to the house where this all went down. But we are hearing from people who live in the area, and they say what happened Wednesday night is something they'll never forget. Calm, quiet, and family friendly. That's how some neighbors describe the area along South Mark Lane in Flagstaff.
Very nice. For the most part, quiet.
But Wednesday night, all of that changed in an instant.
When I heard the entire clip come out of that person's gun, like he fired off the whole thing.
Kathleen Pike knew right away it wasn't fireworks.
No, that was just crazy. So I thought something was going on. You could hear a little, I opened the front door a little bit, you could hear some yelling going on.
Just a few streets away, Jimmy says the scene outside his home quickly filled with flashing lights and officers.
The first thing, when it all started, first off, we heard a loud boom. And then shortly after that, we saw 3 regular local police department officers zoom past. 2 of them went into our trailer park right here. And then 1 came off of here off of Mark Lane.
Within minutes, he says law enforcement from multiple agencies surrounded the area.
This was like the epicenter, like literally right in front of my house.
Police told neighbors to shelter in place as they searched for an armed domestic violence suspect believed to be hopping roofs.
I'm not a gun owner, but now I want to be.
Overhead, a DPS helicopter circled with a spotlight.
I'm like, yeah, this is getting big. That's when I went inside.
Then came a sound neither neighbor can forget.
What I heard was like it sounded like rolling thunder. That's all I could explain it as. And it was like boom, and it was it was just, you could hear it, man. I didn't know what that was at all.
Officials later confirmed the DPS helicopter went down, killing the pilot and a trooper paramedic on board.
I'm just really grateful that none of my neighbors was in the path of a stray bullet, and it's tragic about the helicopter that's trying to help. I just want to pray, just everyone, if you could pray for these families of the lost folks. Pray for this fella that lost his mind last night. I mean, the world's gone mad.
Now, police have not said how long this road will be closed, but they are checking driver's licenses and letting residents back through. Mark, I'll send things over to you.
All right, Kyle, thanks. Boy, what she said sums up what this week has been like in Arizona. The world has gone mad. Josh Colesrud back with us to take a look at this case. We know that the DPS chopper was responding to a shootout. Talk about how a charge of felony murder would be applied with the deaths of the 2 troopers on board.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about felony murder is that you don't have to intend that somebody dies, but it does have to be foreseeable. For example, if you commit a robbery, an armed robbery, and you go into a bank, even if you don't have a gun, but somebody dies because they overreact, then you could be liable and charged with felony murder. Now here, if it comes out that the suspect in the case was firing bullets or any type of fragments at the helicopter in question, he could be charged with felony murder. Also, if the helicopter itself was following the suspect around as there was a firefight, and any bullet, whether it is a police officer's bullet or his bullet, hit the helicopter, then he could also be charged with felony murder, which means that the death penalty could be on the table.
I remember one of the worst stories locally was when the 2 news helicopters crashed. And they were covering a high-speed chase, and at that time, I believe felony murder was also discussed. How are these 2 cases different?
Yeah, so that case, back in 2007, there was a high-speed chase down Central Avenue, and 2 media helicopters collided and crashed in Indian School Park. But what the Maricopa County Attorney's Office decided, though, was that it wasn't foreseeable that the 2 media helicopters could crash in a situation like this. So it's a little bit different now, though, because you have a law enforcement helicopter that crashed. And because of that, and because of the fact that there was a fire exchange between bullets between the law enforcement and the suspect, and even accounts that a suspect was shooting at the helicopter itself, felony murder is much more likely in a case like this.
All right, and quickly, because we have a limited amount of time, I want to go back to the Nancy Guthrie case. We're coming up on 5 o'clock, which is the deadline that's allegedly in the ransom note for $5 million in crypto. So let's say the Savannah Guthrie agrees to pay this. Can this money be traced?
It can be. People think that because it's crypto that, it's untraceable. Well, the only thing that's untraceable really is cash. But here, the law enforcement, the FBI, they can actually watch where the money goes and for what amount. So it'll go from wallet A to wallet B. Now, whenever wallet B spends any of that money, they can watch it go to another wallet. And at some point in time, if that wallet that it goes to is public, then the FBI can subpoena that information, hopefully identify the person who spent that money in the new wallet.
Which blows me away, because I had always been under the assumption that crypto was the ultimate criminal device because it can't be traced.
Yeah, the only thing that crypto does in this case is that it hides the exchange. So unlike a cash transfer where you can have law enforcement everywhere, some drones nearby to look and see who picks up the cash, we don't get to see that. But it loses its disadvantage after the exchange, because now you can watch the wallet and just wait for the criminal to mess up and be caught.
All right, well, we'll be certainly watching that. Again, we're about 35 minutes away from this alleged first deadline of 5 o'clock. We'll continue to follow this story throughout our 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 12 News at 7, which is streaming. But for now, we'll toss it back to Caribe.